and conceivably the destiny of the individual is built upon at least one very important assumption about the nature of life and existence. Either a man is convinced that central to the very structure of life is that which is complete, or better, that which is completed, that which is fixed, is finished, is rounded out. Or, at the center of life, there is that which is dynamic, is fluid, is unfinished, creative. Now, if I'm convinced that life is bottomed by that which is already complete, then commitment has very little meaning for me, because if this life is finished and complete, then I don't have any alternatives anyway. I don't have alternatives. I only have alternatives where things are fluid. Now, commitment, you see, says implicitly and directly that the individual human spirit involved in the predicament of commitment is exercising some kind of alternative, some kind of basic choice. Now, alternative is possible only in a fluid situation. So, if it be true that life in its structure is dynamic, is process, and in its most important aspects is unfinished, then I can exercise alternatives. I can seek to understand what the creative process of life is and to participate in that, to cooperate with it, or I can resist it. Perhaps I cannot resist it indefinitely and ultimately, but I don't know. But I can resist it. I can withdraw myself from sharing in the creative movement of life. I can do as the crabs and the crustacea did when they were coming along out of the slimy oozes of primeval ocean beds, and they said, the going is so rough and it is so difficult that I think I'll just grow me a shell so that I can be quiet inside that shell and protect myself. Well, that was good. But they still have the shell. I can do that. Or I can elect by a self-conscious act of will on my part to participate in what seems to me to be the creative expression of life. So the first suggestion that I would make about the meaning of commitment is this, that it involves the self-conscious act of will on the part of the individual. It is something that I will to do. Now, of course, there is always wrapped up in that a very complicated question, because when I will to do a thing and find that I'm moving out towards it in this way, I'm never sure whether the will to do it is something that I initiated or something that was initiated outside of me, to which I'm responding. As the little boy who whistled in class, and the teacher said, "Johnny, did you whistle?" And Johnny said, "No, I didn't whistle. It whistled itself." Now, so that, because you see, that to which I am committed, and that which involves me in commitment, as I move towards it, even though I may have initiated the act of self-giving. You see, that's what commitment is. I may think that I have initiated the act of self-giving, but that act of self-giving may be in itself not something that I initiated, but something that caused me to respond in the act of self-giving. That is the heart, for instance, of the insistence of all people who try to bring about social change by moral appeal. For the assumption is that if I can expose the mind of the enemy or the opposition to the stark tragedy of injustice, let us say, then that exposure will inspire on the part of the oppressor a will, a desire, a response that will relax the will to oppression. The assumption being that even though there may be no moral initiative left in the enemy that can inspire self-surrender to the mood and the notion and the experience of compassion and justice, if somehow the enemy can be exposed to the tragedy, the tragic character of the suffering and the misery caused by the oppression, then the exposure to the agony of that will inspire in the oppressor a response, which response will be as effective as if the oppressor had experienced a change in his will. Now, that may not be true, you see. That may not be true, but I don't know. I think of a kind of technique that my older sister, when we were youngsters, always applied to my mother. Of course, children now don't understand the language I'm about to use, but when I was a boy, we were exposed rather frequently, too frequently, I thought, to my mother's wrath expressed rather vigorously with her left hand on an oak tree switch. Now, whenever my mother had occasion to whip my sister, with great self-control and composure, my sister simply placed her eyes right in my mother's face. She just looked at her. And in her eyes, she put all of the distilled agony or pain or resentment, whatever it was, just put it there. And first, my mother would be very busy applying the oak switch, but looking at her occasionally. Because she knew that once she ever looked her in the eye, then something would happen. What she saw in my sister's eye would elicit in my mother a response, which response at the moment would be independent of my mother's will. And that is why again and again individuals who are clever and who do not wish to involve themselves in commitment know that they must therefore keep themselves from being exposed to anything that will inspire in them a response, which response, as it becomes active, will make captive their will. And the best way to do is to look the other way. The first thing in the meaning of commitment is the surrender of the will, the self-conscious act of will, maybe initiated by me or maybe called into activity by my response to that which affects me, of which I am aware, and in which I may be involved. Now the second thing in commitment is I don't quite know how to say this, there is always involved in the experience of commitment an increasing singleness of mind, an increasing integration of one's powers and one's personality and resources. The bringing to a point of focus the level of one's intent. Now that's very difficult, because most of us live scattered existences. We don't know really what our point is, if there be a point. We live divisive lives. Our interests are scattered because we are modern men and women. All sorts of demands are made upon us. We don't have time for anything. I was quite amazed. I was talking with one of the young men who went down to the CMR conference at Christmas time, and with a great deal of satisfaction, he said that they had found down at the CMR what this thing is in the song. And I said, "Is that so?" And they said, "Yes, a day that has 25 hours in it. A very crude thing, but it's expressive of the way in which we are enslaved by the overwhelming tyranny of details. And we have no freedom, no sense of freedom, not because we have a master, but because we have many masters. For if I somehow can bring myself to the place that I shall have only one master, then with reference to all of the other masters, I'm free. But we are slaves because our masters are many. And commitment means singleness of mind with reference to a central, all-inclusive, creative end. One master. In terms of religion, it means the surrender of the self, the mind, the intent to God. One master. And if I surrender myself to one master, then, and if that master be one who is worthy of the best that I have, so that in the surrendering of myself, I do not lose respect for my integrity, respect for my person, respect for myself. If I do that, then power, strength, all kinds of new dimensional releases began to spill over into my personality. And I've become the for instance of that to which I am committed. Now, that is why the only sound basis for morality and ethics is to be found in the kind of moral judgment that is inspired by that to which I am committed. Now, let me illustrate it now. Stop. Let's think, each one think personally for a moment. When you decide, when you try to make up your mind about doing a thing, anything, and you wonder whether the thing is right or wrong, who sits in the judge's seat in your mind? Who sits in the judge's seat? Now let's think now. We can be unhurried at that point for a moment. Who sits in the judge's seat and determines whether this thing is seen by you as being wrong or right? Does your neighbor sit in the judge's seat? Does your closest friend sit in the judge's seat? Does public opinion sit in the judge's seat? Does your mother sit in the judge's seat? Your father? Your husband? Your wife? Who sits in the judge's seat? Do you sit in it? Or does God sit in it? Or is it vacant? And if it be vacant, then it means that you function singularly without morality. That's what it means. That stripped to the literal substance of itself, there is seen by you nothing that is either right or wrong. It is either convenient or inconvenient. It is expeditious or it is embarrassing. It is significant or insignificant, wise or foolish, but not right or wrong. If I make the custodian of my conscience anything less than the highest and best, then I condemn myself increasingly to an existence of in the sense of negative, immorality. Now, therefore, whether I'm interested in religion or not, whether I'm interested in ever being a part of a church or not, if I am concerned about being a healthy, creative human being, I must find that which is capable of holding my highest aspirations and my noblest yearnings. The degree to which I find that, to that degree will order begin to appear in my life. And I will know whenever I'm lost. Now, just one more little word. Everybody is capable of commitment. And And it is a unique genius, I think, of religion that the conditions of commitment are always in reach of the most mediocre, if I may use a word like that, the most self-effacing, the most humble human being. For religion insists that when at my little level I surrender my will, my life, to use good old-fashioned words, when I let God take a first mortgage on my resources, then I am provided with a point of reference that throws meaning on my little life. And even though I'm not able to lead a great movement, I'm not able to think of great thoughts, but what I can do is clear to me, for it is within reach of me. The meditation on the back of the calendar is an illustration of what I'm talking about. Read it when you go home. Simple, 69-year-old lady. She couldn't make a speech, could hardly write a sentence, and so modest she wouldn't even tell me her name over the telephone. But she said, I do talk to people every day when I go into town on the bus. And I do talk to the lady who's been waiting on me in X-Hot store every time, because we're old friends now, and all about her children, everything. She knows all about mine. So I'll just start talking about that to which now I have a central and fundamental commitment. And the amazing thing is, and I say this to you, that if you feel that your life is inconsequential, that it doesn't matter very much about you, because you're not X or Y or Z, get up off the ground, lift up your face, reach your hand out for that which is capable of inspiring in you a full and creative surrender is close at hand. For God is never far from any one of us. Cleave the wood, and there he is. Lift the stone, and behold his face. That is within reach of us, and all the strength of God will crowd your little life so that you can't possibly contain it, and it will spill out into 1,000 ways of which you've never dreamed.